That's the plan for the show. So, Vinny, without further ado, I want to hear about Smackdown, which I didn't watch.
Smackdown had there was some good stuff on it, although a lot of it also left me depressed. They recapped the entire Christian versus Randy Orton storyline. Orton came out for a promo. He was literally begging for cheers for a while. Said he didn't give a damn about his concussion. He wanted to fight tonight. Cut out Christian, got Teddy Long instead. He cut a weirdly edited promo. The gist of it was that Orton was unofficially ready to... excuse me. I screwed up the quote.
Man, what a hell of an interview so far.
I am rereading the quote here. I realized in my report I got the quote wrong. But something about how he's not clear to wrestle because of his concussion. So they teased that it was only a formality until Sunday, suggesting Orton would have been wrestling, but they did not guarantee it. So it was very clever there. Christian finally came out. He said he did Orton a favor by giving him a concussion. Now Randy would have an excuse when he lost. They went back and forth for a while. Sheamus interrupted. He said that he beat Orton last week and he wanted a title shot too. He said Christian had lost 50 title matches in a row. Christian interrupted, called him strawberry shortcake. They went back and forth. And finally, Teddy interrupted and said, look, Sheamus versus Christian is the main event tonight. If Sheamus wins, he's in the pay-per-view main event, and it'll be a three-way. And he said Orton could have a ringside seat. And that was that.
So basically, he was guaranteeing somebody would run in.
Yeah. Or at least would tease interference.
Because I don't even know what the hell happens on this show, but I'm just making predictions based on the storyline.
That is largely what he said.
Okay.
They plugged a website feature on the top 25 managers of all time, and I can only imagine a large chunk of their audience now turning to their parents and saying, Daddy, what's a manager? Mm-hmm. We had a six-man of Sin Cara and Daniel Bryan and Ezekiel Jackson versus Wade Barrett, Cody Rhodes, and Teddy DiBiase. It was a rematch from Raw with Cody and, or maybe from the week before, with Cody and Ted filling in for Heath and Justin. Sin Cara worked a lot with DiBiase and Cody, and it all looked great. So he needs to work with these men every single week. And then Bryan got the hot tag. He was running wild on Ted DiBiase. He had about 4 moves, the last of which was a drop kick in the corner. And he made a cover. And DiBiase sort of got his shoulder up at 3, but the ref counted 3. And they said that was that. And the bell rang, and the good guys won.
Tape show, everybody.
And it was a tape show, and this is what we got. So, after commercial, actually, they replayed the finish in slow-mo. DiBiase definitely kicked out or got his shoulder up before the 3 count, so they put the heat on the ref for fucking this up. And all I can say is if this was the plan going in, then everyone did a great job of making it look like a fuck-up.
Most likely it wasn't a plan going in, but nobody thought on their feet to do it again. Mm-hmm. And so they had to put the heat on the referee, which is wacky because anytime you turn something like that into an angle, one expects that it's going to turn into an angle. And based on Raw and the pay-per-view, they did not turn this into an angle.
No. It was just a fuck-up. Sheamus did a backstage interview. He said tonight he would beat Christian again. Then on Sunday he would beat Orton again and take his place as world champion. Then he flashed his giant Irish smile, and you know how WWE always leaves the camera on the guys for way too long after they talk? They did that here, but it worked. Because Sheamus was just happy that he was going to beat all these men to be champion. Do you know who Jinder Mahal wrestled on this show?
I have no idea.
Jinder Mahal wrestled Vladimir Kozlov.
God, you've got to be kidding me.
It was not a disaster.
Thank God I've got this show on tape.
It was not a disaster.
That's impossible.
Although, it was... Early on, Kozlov...
Meaning the ropes didn't break and the ring didn't collapse?
None of that happened. There were no fires, no chemical warfare. No. Kozlov did take a very hard face bump into the turnbuckle, and then shortly thereafter, Khali hit a chop to the face, and Kozlov was bleeding everywhere. I assume it was from the turnbuckle, but Khali may have also just chopped him to death. And Mahal beat him with the full Nelson Slam. It was not that horrible. Josh Matthews called Big Show down to the ring for an interview. And what the hell do my notes go? There you go. His first question, and I am not making this up. As a Raw superstar, what are you doing here on SmackDown? I'm not making up Big Show's answer earlier. He heard Alberto was going to be there. Alberto, also a Raw guy.
Yeah.
This is what they have now to get guys in all the shows. So they re-showed Big Show getting run over. Matthews asked Show how he was feeling, and Show could barely contain himself. He's just pacing back and forth and trying to maintain his composure. Teddy Long interrupted. said, quote, "Criminal and civil charges are being contemplated against you in the brutal attack on Del Rio's ring announcer." He said if a similar incident occurred on his watch, they would both lose their jobs. So, you would think the next obvious step would be have Big Show escorted out of the building. No! Teddy Long's response was to book him any match.
Well, it wasn't done on his watch.
Well,
he's got to make this show entertaining.
I guess his job is to ensure Big Show doesn't beat up anyone else by having him wrestle someone. Out came Mark Henry. Michael Cole then said the following words, "This is not going to be for the faint of heart."
For sure.
This is before the pay-per-view, by the way, for those of you who saw what happened there. So Big Show wrestled Mark Henry. Show did not want to wrestle. He looked like he was going to cry as Henry was coming down to the ring. And then as Henry was stepping through the ropes, Show charged over, hit a running boot to the face. He got in sort of a half-guard side control position and started laying in punches, and then moved into side control and started throwing a series of knees to the head. They treated this as a bad knockout, with referees and EMTs diving into the ring. They put Mark Henry on a stretcher. They were carrying him out as if this was the end of him. Big Show just pulled his hoodie over his head and walked to the back. And two things. One, Mark Henry was back to the pay-per-view 2 days later.
Yeah.
Two,
none the worse for wear.
In fact, he got his revenge.
In fact, I was doing Observer Live, and Mike Sempervive had seen Smackdown, and I hadn't. And he was talking about, when we were going over what to talk about on the show, he said, we could talk about the TV. And I said, yeah, I didn't see Smackdown. He goes, I did. We could talk about that and how they destroyed Mark Henry again. And I was like, that's interesting. And we never ended up talking about it, so I didn't even know what happened. And then that night, Henry just returns on the pay-per-view. Yep. There was like no recap of Big Show killing him. Nope. There was no recap of him being stretchered out. I mean, I had no idea. No. And I never would have had any idea had you not explained this to me right now.
Yeah.
Welcome to Impact.
Welcome to Pro Wrestling in 2011.
I should note, by the way, that we'll talk about it later, WWE fucking up the voting on Monday. But in the news update, I made a comment about how, you've done Cyber Sunday and Taboo Tuesday for years, and somehow after all this time you fuck up the voting. This is like something TNA would do. And somebody that works with the TNA website emailed me.
They were offended?
They were offended. And in fact, they noted, in all the years of doing our website, we have never fucked up a poll.
Wow.
What does that tell you?
It tells you that WWE really sucks these days.
Oh, my God.
Although with all the practice of things being on polls over in TNA, they should have that one down.
That is true.
So getting back to Big Show and Mark Henry here, besides just the fact that Mark Henry shook off this near-death experience in 48 hours, the other point of this was Mark Henry came out for a contest. He was jumped with no warning and savagely beaten for no reason. Are they doing a double turn?
The reason being that Big Show was mad.
I guess so. So, yes, he came off as the victim of a heinous and cowardly attack. Christian did a backstage interview. He was pissed off, saying he shouldn't have to prove that he deserved a title shot when he never should have lost that title in the first place. Alicia Fox and Rosa Mendez and Tamina versus Natalya and AJ and Caitlyn. AJ got a hot tag in like a minute. I'm going to list her comeback from start to finish in every detail. She got in the ring. She did a little dance. She hit a standing forearm, falling down in the process. I'm going to say that one again. She hit a standing forearm, falling down in the process.
So she hit the person so hard
she knocked herself over.
Yes, the blow caused her to take a bump.
Right. She scrambled to her feet. She hit a second forearm and nearly fell over again.
Was she attacking Mark Henry?
It was Tamina.
That's close, I guess.
Larger than most women.
Yeah.
Right, in this company anyway. So Tamina shoved her into the ropes. AJ bounced off. She tried a crucifix cradle, but Tamina blocked it and turned it into a Samoan drop and pinned her.
Hell of a comeback.
This was the worst comeback of all time anywhere. It's impossible for a comeback to have gone worse than this.
Who was it that argued with me on the board about how AJ was actually good?
A fool.
Well, obviously.
An out-and-out fool. And I also have no earthly idea what the hell they're trying to do with this program, other than show us, look what a fool AJ is.
But I'll bet they told us that she was a real nerd and she loved comic books and action movies and video games.
Honestly, they probably didn't just because they didn't have any time.
Nice.
This went 90 seconds start to finish.
During the ring intros, I'm sure they mentioned this.
They may have.
It was Josh, too.
So, then we got Johnny Curtis. Johnny Curtis said he had won NXT Season 4. He would soon be debuting on Smackdown, which made me laugh because he's already on the show every week. How can he make his debut? Then he hit a golf shot, and he reached into the golf hole, and he pulled out an ace of spades because he has an ace in the hole.
You know, I don't want to jump the gun and talk about World of Hurt now, but I'm going to make some mention of it here. For those of you that listened to Lance's show last week when I was talking about World of Hurt, there was a moment on that show when T-Bone appeared. And he was giving advice to, what the hell is that girl's name?
Casey Spinelli?
No, the other one. Oh, it was Casey, that's right. He's giving advice to Casey, I believe. And I mentioned to Lance that I didn't remember his name. I don't remember anything about him.
What you said was he may as well have been invisible.
I may have said that.
I think
I said he's the guy that kind of looks like Justin Credible.
You said
Bald,
that too, yes. Yeah.
Got a tank top with no sleeves. He's like, oh, that's T-Bone. And he starts explaining to me about all this personality and charisma that T-Bone has. And I'm like, well, I haven't seen it yet. And he goes, oh, next week the show's about him. You'll get to see it. So anyway, I'll never forget T-Bone as long as I live. One 30-minute episode of the show.
Yeah.
I will never forget T-Bone as long as I live. And really the same goes for like most of the people that have been featured on World of Hurt. The girl in the first episode, I can't for the life of me remember her fucking name.
The one who got signed?
Yeah, but I'll never forget her. I can tell you what she looks like. I can tell you everything about the episode. I'm just bad with names. Everyone should know that by now. But the point is, I know everything there is to know about all of these people, or at least I feel like I know a lot about them. I understand their personalities, their motivations, everything like that. 30-minute television show. And granted, Johnny Curtis hasn't had 30 minutes, but this is just another example of let's take a guy and let's give him a gimmick. The one that I always think about is Carlito. God bless Carlito, but his gimmick was he was a guy who didn't like people that weren't cool. What in the fuck kind of a character is that? After all of the years that Carlito was in WWE, do I feel like I know more about Carlito than I know about T-Bone right now? Fuck no! I knew he was a guy with big hair, and he was a guy that didn't like people that weren't cool. Literally the only thing I knew about him. They thought, oh, this is how you make a character. Every week we'll have him come out and he'll spit an apple on somebody and he'll say, I don't like people that aren't cool. Whatever his fucking catchphrase was. I've already forgotten that. That should tell you something right there. So that's all I know about Carlito. And now Johnny Curtis. Johnny Curtis has... everything he does is a cliche. Mm-hmm. That's his character.
He puts a chip on his shoulder.
He cries
over spilled milk.
He's got an ace in the hole. Woohoo! Does anybody on the earth give a fuck?
No.
No, not a single person. Do I know a goddamn thing about Johnny Curtis?
No.
I didn't watch NXT. Do I know a goddamn thing about him after all these vignettes? No. Next week it's going to be another stupid cliche. And you know what's going to happen? He's going to debut on TV. Nobody else will have seen NXT either. Nobody's going to give a fuck about this stupid gimmick that he's always got a cliche. He ain't going to get over. Nobody's going to care, and he's going to get cut. Why? Nothing even against Johnny Curtis.
Because that's how the business works these days.
Because nobody knows what they're doing in wrestling anymore.
No.
At least in WWE. I know fucking everything there is to know about the Briscoes.
Yes.
If you've never seen the Briscoes in your life... I'll play a 7-minute promo for you after Vinny's SmackDown review. You'll know everything there is to know about the Briscoes.
We should save that for the end of the show.
In 7 minutes! Yeah, we'll hold that off till the end of the show.
It's the best thing on the show.
But in 7 minutes, if you've never seen the Briscoes in your life, at the end of this promo, you'll never forget them. And meanwhile, Johnny Curtis is a fucking ace in a hole. Jesus Christ.
So yes, as I noted, an amazingly bad gimmick here. I mean, this is a slam dunk for worst gimmick of the year. If that award is still given out, then this wins, period. So then they go to the announce desk, and Michael Cole says the following words. At least Johnny Curtis is standing out here on SmackDown.
Oh, yeah! This
is what wrestling has come to. This is where I got just completely depressed. The rest of the show, for most of it, I was just in a deep, deep depression.
Dusty Rhodes, Abdullah the Butcher, the Nature Boy Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate fucking Warrior, and now Johnny Curtis is a guy who they think stands out on SmackDown.
Yeah. It is depressing. They did more wacky stuff with people asking Obama questions. This one actually was funny. First, Sheamus asked a question. He said he had a birth certificate, claimed to be born in Cleveland, and thus he should be eligible to run for president as well. Then Obama called on the great Khali. Khali stood up in this room full of reporters. He was wearing his bright red pants and no shirt. He stood up. He looked around the room a few times, and he thrust both his enormous fists into the sky and went, "Bah!" And then he shrugged and he sat back down. Awesome.
Always good for some comedy.
Always good. The Usos wrestled Heath Slater and Justin Gabriel. The team of Slater and Gabriel, they were in Nexus. Then they were in Core. Now they're on their own. And they have a video that just reads in giant letters, Heath Justin. That is apparently their name. So considering they were part of, they were in the SummerSlam main event. They were in the, for a long time, they were in the top of the card program and multiple time tag team champions. And after all that, nobody still gives a fuck about them. And nobody gives a fuck about the Usos, who've been around just about as long. So that also made me depressed. They had a good match. There was no heat at the start of this because nobody cared. But they had a good match and people were into it by the end. And the Usos won with a top rope splash. But I was still depressed just at how, you have two talented tag teams here. Just let them have good matches. They'll probably get over. But I guess that's too hard. They aired a Cena Truth highlight video. It was full of Truth promos, so it was entertaining, but there was not a single shot, not one shot, of R-Truth winning a wrestling match. He's getting a title shot because he shouted a lot. Depressing. Alberto Del Rio, a Raw wrestler, randomly came out to SmackDown to cut a promo. He said there were rumors that he was coming back to SmackDown to flee the Big Show. Kind of foolish, considering Big Show was also there. Said his destiny was to be WWE champion. Nobody could stop that, not even a giant. They re-aired the angle from Monday night, and I must say, Brian, you were right. Big Show was tearing down that aisle.
Yes, he was.
He was. Jesus Christ. So they showed him sprinting down the aisle and then beating the holy hell out of Ricardo. Kane had to pull him off. They were playing scary music and camera effects. The goal here was to make Big Show look like the scariest, angriest, out-of-control monster ever. Mission accomplished. So they went back to the ring. Alberto said Ricardo was his best friend. He was loyal. He followed Alberto's every word, just like a dog. I was terrified here that he had just written Ricardo out of the storyline, but apparently he keeps talking about him, so he'll come back at some point. But that depressed me further. Alberto said Ricardo had a daughter and a wife, but he would come back like Moctezuma, and he would get his revenge. He dedicated his victory on Sunday to his best friend Ricardo, and he was going on and on and on. So if Big Show was there, he would spit in Show's face. Show's music finally hit. He hit the ring again. As he hit the ring, Alberto rolled out of the ring and just fled up the stairs into the upper decks. I don't know which one of them it was, but one of them was moving so quickly and so frantically that they destroyed the bottom rope.
Probably the Big Show, I guess.
A safe bet. If furniture is broken, Big Show is likely responsible. So Alberto's up at the top. He realizes he is faster than Show.
Well, you weren't there, right?
As far as breaking furniture?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Big Show, by the way, could also outrun me. He did not outrun Alberto, but he could outrun me. So, yes, Alberto realized he was safe in the heights, so he taunted Big Show. He was laughing at him. He was winking at him. So Show went completely crazy. He destroyed the announce table. He started tearing apart the dasher boards. He ripped the pads off, and he picked up the big metal structure inside and hoisted it over his head and tossed it into the ring post. You know how people will easily pick up the stairs? The announcers will say, oh, gosh, that's 300 pounds. And you think, that looks like 50. This thing looked heavy. And Big Show was tossing it around.
Okay, hold on a second.
Yeah.
I've mentioned this again. I didn't watch this show. But how in the fuck did they not put any of this on the pay-per-view or on Raw?
I don't know. I don't know.
Big Show destroyed the dasher boards, and Alberto was winking at him, and he flipped his lid and destroyed the announce table and threw a metal thing into the post that was really heavy. And I've not seen that yet!
People were going crazy chanting Big Show's name. They cut to Alberto. He was terrified now that he had to wrestle this monster in 48 hours. This was a great angle for a completely random mid-card match.
This is impact-worthy here.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. I did not see the pay-per-view, but yes, this should have been shown. But at least, if you're going to show it in one of the two places, it should be on SmackDown.
Well, yeah, but if it's building up the pay-per-view, show it on the pay-per-view. Oh, you know what?
What? Did you skip an entrance or something?
I didn't skip an entrance.
Craig?
But every time, like during a break, if I went to the kitchen to get a water, or I went to go to the bathroom, I came back, he fast-forwarded like 10 minutes. So I may have to issue a public apology here. This may have been shown on the pay-per-view, and Craig fast-forwarded through everything. I do not take responsibility for this, by the way. And if Craig, you can call in on Friday's show with Ed and Cotrere and Craig and ask him, and he will verify that every time he fucking fast forwards to the entrance, I tell him to go back if I catch him. So anyway, I apologize if this was shown on the pay-per-view. If it wasn't, I don't apologize at all.
So Christian wrestled Sheamus in the main event. They had repaired the bottom rope. So Sheamus is a heel, and Christian is a just turned heel. So they're wrestling each other, and Sheamus gets the heat on Christian. He's working him over. So people are clapping and chanting Christian's name. Not the way I would have put it together.
I called this a long time ago. They shouldn't have turned Christian heel when they did.
And if they were going to, they should not have booked him against another heel. Especially a big, scary one like Sheamus. So the good news is they were smart enough to not have Christian make a big, hot, fiery comeback. Instead, Sheamus went for a superplex. Christian dropped to the floor. He pulled Sheamus' face down into the ring post, and then jumped back into the ring and covered him for the pinfall, and that was the finish. So the ref counted 3. Orton immediately hit the ring. Christian ran for his life. And so Orton, after a long delay, got back in the ring and hit Sheamus with the punt of death. Again. This is what Randy Orton does, but just like when Big Show destroyed Mark Henry for no reason, the babyfaces act like complete assholes. But that was SmackDown.
Sounds like an exciting show. I can't wait to watch it.
You're lying, aren't you?
Actually, there's a lot of stuff on there that I actually want to watch. Mostly involving the Big Show, believe it or not.
This was a great show for the Big Show.
Well, it's a big show for the Big Show. All right, let's play a song.